So salty.
I thought I saw him on the scab stream, so he's probably somewhere.
Mm.
Yo!
What do they have? What's it?
Where did you put it at the computer again? You have to put it where they're not going.
I thought I put it. They're taking all my views.
That's it.
It's a joke.
And still, you don't want to come off as mean. Yeah, this was an asthma attack. Because I'm tugging right here. I think I was trying too hard to breathe.
You gotta build up to it.
No, it's asthma. It's my allergies. It's not going to help it. I can't go outside like that again.
Yo, Jojo. How you doing? That's good. Should have did my hand.
You're fine.
Yo, Whistle and Dixie.
No, she's just chilling. Forky, stop. We should have taken him out earlier. Really, Forky?
That's fine.
Oh, Forky. Oh my God, Forky.
You need Jesus over there, boy. So, as you can see by the title, we're gonna do the recovery edge with salty Redcorn. So, we're just waiting for them to come on. Oh, and the brother.
Hi, Mike.
Mike. No, that ain't real. Hey, Mike. How you doing? I've been meaning to call you. I just. So, Salty said it will be 10 more minutes. So,
Yeah, that's fine. Give people time to come in.
yeah.
I'll take my inhaler one more time.
Jojo, I gave one of my knives to my dad that you gave me. He loves small knives, so I gave him one.
Because your dad's a very large man.
Yeah,
So you think that he'd like big ones?
I don't understand that.
That's a good point.
No, that's a lot of work, and I do not want that. Yeah, I
Say hi to Mike, Forky.
say hi, Uncle Mike.
Say hi, Mike.
Uncle Mike.
Uncle Mike.
Is being so good today.
Nuh-uh.
He is.
Mom's fat boy.
Oh, mama's boy.
Mom's fat boy. He likes to be rocked like a baby.
You are a baby. Woo!
Porky.
Porky.
You want to talk Porky?
That's a fat boy.
This belly. Misty's eating.
So, Mike, I have a question for you. Would you ever come on here and share your story? I know me and you talk a lot about it. But it's just a offer if you want to. You don't have to, like I always said. Well, it doesn't have to be recovery. I mean, recovery is like if you relapse, that's a part of recovery.
True.
So, I mean, it's all up to you. It's just sharing your story, no judging anything like that.
And it could be anonymous too.
Yeah, we could even do like audio.
Yeah, like you don't have to put your camera on.
Yeah,
because there's just a stop cam button right down here.
Yeah, just your mic. Boy.
I told my dad I had an asthma attack earlier. He's going to be pissed. It'd be funny if he comes on here. Like, what do you mean you had an asthma attack?
That's You have one. You're fine now.
He's a respiratory therapist. That concerns him. Come here, Misty. Say hi to the people.
He concerns me.
Come on, Misty. Let's say hi to the people.
Oh, hey, beautiful. Whoa.
He wants your mother. Oh, nobody. Oh, no snuggles right now. A little too wound up for snuggles right now.
Too much of pissing that nigga.
No, she wants to play.
Where does hell go?
Someone's got the hiccups.
Oh, you got the hiccups.
I have to put them back on when more people come. If this becomes like a weekly thing, my dad just comes on like, yo. Forky.
Fuck Forky.
He's not caught, is he?
Yeah, hey, baby boy. No. Mike, I think
You're getting distracted.
how can I know? But Mike, I think you should look into pain management because that's a whole nother program for pain and all that.
Put something random on for the background.
Yeah, I wanted the basketball game, but
We have to restart it.
I did. She can't go do the thing.
I think people are still on scabs now, so I think they might hop off his, and then they should still get the notification for this one.
If JoJo Jeep is still here, man, I've been looking at that batch made recently. I'm thinking about it. I don't know. That's a lot of money. Just be careful, Mike. That's all I want for you. I know it's a shit sandwich, but just be careful.
But would you say something next time?
Yeah.
You can't just you still silent, baby girl. This hurts.
What?
Asthma attack.
Mm.
I'm still trying a little too hard to breathe, and I'm tugging like under here.
Howdy.
Hi, Garen.
Humidifier tonight.
Yeah.
Would remember that one humidifier we had,
The crane
and then
one.
we put what they call vapor rust. Or,
That was one that was specifically made for that. You can't just put it in there. I don't think we have any Vicks.
What's up, Garen?
Forky, really?
How you doing?
Yeah, I got really bad asthma. I went on a workout earlier outside. I was just doing some walking, and I had my dumbbells with me. And I get so bad around this time of year. I love this time of year. It's my favorite season. But for whatever reason, it fucks with my asthma so bad, like even worse than spring when all the actual allergies are out. And I came back and I was like halfway through and I started like having a hard time. So I came back and I had an asthma attack. It wasn't severe, but it happens. I can't really control it.
Does anyone recommendations? Drink a cup of hot coffee. Or that is a good idea.
I was actually thinking about that.
Maybe not coffee, but like you don't do tea.
I don't do tea.
But
Yeah, I've got my regular rescue here, but if I'm having like an attack, it's not going to do much because if I keep puffing on it, it's albuterol, and all it does is make you feel like you're on speed. So I have to get like an actual nebulizer albuterol prescription, but that takes a little bit because you have to go see a pulmonologist because normally your primary doctor won't do that. So I have to go see a pulmonary person. I'm fine now. I'm breathing. It's just when you have to try a little too hard to breathe, you start to tug in places. So your skin, it looks like it's being pulled. So it hurts a little bit, but I'm fine.
no. What? No.
Hi, Tina.
Tina, I was not ready for last night.
I wasn't ready for that either. I tried to hold it together. I did. I tried my best.
You are one hell of a woman. You're beautiful, and I especially want to say thank you for being here for Lauren and doing that last night. And it means the world to me. So thank you.
She has asthma and COPD, Garen. Not good. Not good.
Hey, mom, get you some.
Yeah. I don't. Every time I try to call the pulmonary people, I can't get through, and I don't know even when they would take me. So, my sister has asthma too. So,
Can you get it though?
Yeah. My sister Allison has it too, so she's gonna let me have some of hers. Forky.
You on the town.
Forky, slow.
Slow, baby.
I don't have COPD. I have, I guess, the fancy term for asthma would be, I guess, reactive airway disease. I've had it since I was a baby.
Okay. See you in a bit. So I didn't catch scab, so I caught like 10 minutes of it at the end, but I hope everything went well over there. Um, oh,
This is a really bad time for pneumonia right now.
hmm.
Yeah, you said Porky earlier, but to be fair, that's a pretty fair nickname for him, I'd say, because he's the fat one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm just gonna start calling him Porky now.
Hold on. Salty is trying to get in here. Yep, that's what wife does.
You have to take it easy when it comes to pneumonia. It's no joke.
Whenever I feel pain, and this girl doesn't let me do nothing.
Nope. Because you shouldn't.
It's okay, Mike. I called him a lot worse.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me. So,
Don't ever call me by my government name.
Lauren.
Don't ever call me by my government name.
Lauren.
It's even worse when you include my middle name.
Salty.
I'm late.
Nah, you good.
What's happening?
Nothing.
All right.
Ain't shield arms.
So yeah, I was a little bit late. I had customers that were dwindling here still, and I had to get them all checked out and taken care of. But I'm free now. I'm here.
Well,
I mean,
I appreciate you taking the time.
of course, of course, of course, of course.
So why don't we do a pocket check?
Yeah, make it a thing.
All right, pocket check.
Okay.
I am wearing a Richard Legrand Odyssey Mark II on the wrist. I have the salty Redcorn Americorn Santo version 2 right here. And I have a traditional Gerber Burns Otter and high carbon.
So
That's in my pocket.
these are the only thing I got.
Nice. Cold steel.
I didn't leave the house today. I'm in my pajamas and
Lauren, what do you got?
I think the Karambit, but you sharpened it earlier. The only other one I have, I keep on my keys.
You got the flashlight.
Yeah, I keep this on me.
The stream light.
That's a necessity.
And
And the EpiPen backup. I'm not afraid to use it.
keys.
Oh yeah, this one.
Nice.
Little gas station.
Deadly gas station stabber.
Piece of sharpening. And then my self-defense.
I call it the self-defense butt plug.
I was gonna say, don't say that.
That's what my dad calls
It
it.
doesn't mean that you say it.
Oh, if anyone want a wallet, get this one.
What is that?
A wallet. It has a button that if you hit it, it comes.
Whoa. OTF wallet.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
that's only like $20.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool. I dig that.
And I
Fast
mean,
action.
pretty, I don't know, do you think it's better just because of your arthritis?
Yeah.
Well, you know what else I think is cool about that is it probably only takes a certain amount of cards in it, and it forces you to keep minimal cards in your wallet. Like sometimes as guys, I know like you carry your wallet around and you keep putting stuff in there. Next thing you know, you have a huge wallet in your back pocket, and that causes back problems.
Yeah, I can't fit my.
What'd you do?
I can't fit this in there.
It's too big.
My gun license.
I'll delay it.
Nice.
Fix it up.
Gotta have that gun license. That's a
Yeah,
prioritize.
You have to change your address almost.
I know.
We've been here for 2 years now.
No, it's fine.
Mikey, don't worry. My gun permit still says my old address on it too.
See?
Sorry, not encouraging.
Samurai bird.
Can you see the chat?
Hold on, let me see.
Who said it last night about moving the window over? I forget. There's a way you can move the window over and you can see the comments. Tina did it. I just don't remember. There is a way though.
Oh,
I'm back.
somehow you froze.
I tried to see two of me. Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah, there it goes.
Sorry, I'm an amateur. I tried to look at the chat. I can't see the chat. I can just see me and you guys. I'm cool with that.
I know Scab was streaming, so
Yeah, there's probably a lot of people still in the Scab and Joe chat room. That's
Yeah.
fine. I'm cool with that. So, how do we kick this off? I mean, you guys, how do we do this? You got questions for me, or do I just spill the beans and tell you everything about myself?
So
Well, last night with Tina, I suggested maybe just start from the beginning, like in chronological order.
like start by maybe giving a description of yourself and introducing.
I could do that. So, I'm salty Redcorn, right? I grew up on Long Island, New York, from a basically a single mom type thing. My dad and my mom were never married. Both of my parents are addicts and alcoholics. and they were never married, and it was always like a rough situation with them. I remember being a little kid, and I would have to do like visitations with my dad on the weekends very early on, and it was always like there was never any kind of common ground. It was always meet up at the police station to drop me off. There was always police present. My dad would go, he would go off to the deep end. He'd be super crazy and angry. And my mom, super, she's an egger on her. You know what I mean? She really knows how to get people going, and sometimes bring out the worst in people. So that was that, and that went on for a long time, basically until I was probably 6 or 7 years old. My mom always had different boyfriends in the house as long as I could ever remember. It was a new boyfriend every week. He was my new dad, and it was like, pretty crazy as far as that goes. And when I was
you were instantly expected to call them dad.
Always. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Because my mom would dive in so hard. My mom's very, very interesting person, and yeah, that was pretty much always kind of expected. And we moved around so much, man. We never stayed in one place for, even for like a matter of months. Sometimes we moved every month, sometimes we moved every week, so there was just moving around all the time, always. New guy, new person in the life. And at one point when I was I was probably, I want to say 7 or 8 years old. She met a guy named Brian, who I'm still in contact with him to this day. They got married, actually, and that was kind of the most stability that I had at any point in time in my whole life. And they got pregnant, and I had a younger brother. My younger brother's name was Gabriel. We had a pretty big age difference. I think there was 8 years in between us. And my mom wanted to move out to Arizona from New York. So we all packed up and we moved to Arizona when my brother was an infant. And we went out there to live like a normal life. And when we got there, we moved into a house, and everything was kind of, somewhat normal, so to speak. I mean, always with the dysfunction and always with drugs involved, but basically, that didn't last very long. My brother's dad, Brian, who my mom married, my stepdad, he was sober at the time. He had quit drinking. He was sober at the time, and he was on like the straight and narrow, so to speak. And like I said, sometimes my mom can bring the worst out of people, and he ended up getting back into drugs, and he was taking meth and drinking and all types of crazy stuff like that. And his family are very supportive people, so his family naturally flew him back to New York to live with, to go to rehab and whatnot and get clean. And so I stayed in Arizona with my mom and my brother. And at that point, things got, progressively worse. My mom started getting into, all types of drugs, mainly, prescription, basically any kind of drugs. And she still will probably deny this to this day. But, there was a time that came when we were living in an apartment in Tucson. And she was acting really, really, really crazy. Basically saying that there was bugs living in the walls, and there was monsters living in the drains in the bathroom. And she was covering all the pillows and sheets with plastic garbage bags, and it was just super uncomfortable. And as a kid, I've always been really self-aware, because I always kind of had to have some sense when the people that were the adults around me had no sense. You know what I mean? So basically at that point, it got really, really bad, and she ended up calling like the fire department one day and telling them, you know, about seeing these bugs and these monsters or whatever. And so CPS actually came, and they took me and my brother to like a CPS facility in Arizona. And my brother was only, I think, 3 years old at the time. And
So you would have been about 10, 11.
around that age, yeah. And so we didn't spend too much time in CPS because my brother's dad, Brian, his family's super supportive people, and I love them so much, and they've done so much for me. They flew out to Arizona, and they basically took custody of me and my younger brother, got us out of CPS. They flew us back to New York, right? And at that time, I really didn't know a whole lot about, you know, what was going to happen. I had a lot of friends at that point in Arizona as a kid, and I didn't want to leave, and I was pretty bitter about the whole thing. So I came back to New York with them, and I lived with them, right? And I ended up getting in a lot of, you know, trouble in school. I ended up in an alternative school, you know, from like 5 to 7, you know, with some bad kids or whatever, and I ended up gaining a lot of weight when I was I think by the time I was 14, I weighed 325 pounds. So I ended up gaining a lot of weight because I was just eating, you know, it was like a comfort for me at that point. And I was still really, really bitter about, you know, not being able to be with my friends in Arizona. And my mom was still living there. She had gone to a mental institution of some sort, and she blamed her episode on some kind of like on scabies. She said she had scabies, which is like some kind of like skin bug or something to that effect, like bed bugs or something. She said it affected her nervous system, but it was drugs. And I don't know, about 2 years into that, so about 14 years old, almost 15, maybe 3 years into that, sorry, I ended up convincing Brian's parents to let me go back to Arizona, right? And my brother stayed with them in New York. And so I went back to Arizona to live with my mom. And I was happy to be back in Arizona to be with my friends. I spent a lot of the time out of the house, you know, not being around my mom because it was the same shit as before. It was just new boyfriend, new drugs, all that kind of stuff, all the time, all the fucking time. And I remember this. So I'll keep going. So I basically I got into some trouble at school for weed. I wasn't even smoking weed, but I wanted to be cool, right? And these kids had some weed at school. And I remember they gave me some seeds, some weed seeds, right? And I put them I opened up a pen, I put them inside of a pen, and I had them at school, and I thought I was really cool, you know? And this girl ended up telling on me. And so eventually I ended up getting arrested at school because in Arizona, marijuana is like a serious felony charge, right? So at that point, I had a class 6 felony against me. I missed my court date because my mom ended up going back to a mental institution. I went to live with some friends. And then by that time, I ended up getting locked up and going to juvenile detention for several months because I missed my court date and I was a flight risk and all this kind of stuff. So I got out of when I was in juvie. My mom was dating this guy. His name was Joe, somebody that she knew from a long, long time ago. And she was like, "Oh, it's he's the new best thing. He's the new guy, right? Best thing." So when I was in juvie, he was like smoking crack, right? And he basically held my mom hostage inside of this apartment building. And this is all stuff that my mom told me when she came to visit me. So I'm in juvie, locked up, and she's telling me these things. And police came, SWAT team came. They shot the guy off the balcony with non-lethals, and this guy ended up going to jail. Right? He's gonna come back into play a little bit further in the story. So crazy situation with that guy. I get out of juvie. She's still with him. I end up living in an apartment complex with the two of them. This guy was smoking crack and drinking heavily every single night. I remember I had got like a boom box, like a 6-disc CD player boom box thing. I used to listen to music when I was going to sleep at night because it just, I always liked listening to music. It kind of took me like somewhere else, And so I got this CD player, and this guy would come into my room at like 2 or 3 in the morning, smoking crack, drinking beer, and fucking play like death metal as like on my stereo in my room as high as he possibly could, man. And this shit used to piss me off real bad. But so anyways, I end up she decides that she's gonna leave this guy, right? Because now she's at a point where she wants to go back to New York herself, and she feels like she's missing out on my younger brother's life, and she wants to go back to New York to be with my little brother, right? And I'm at this point, I'm like, fuck, I don't want to be with you. I don't want to be part of any of this shit anymore. I want to stay here, because I had friends whose family would constantly take me in because they knew like what my situation was like at home. So they would just be like, yeah, you can stay the night here, like every night. You know what I mean? Like stay here as much as you want. And I found comfort in that, in that, like being able to go and basically live with like normal families, so to speak. Right. And so she wanted to go back to New York, and I said, I don't want to go. I want to stay. And she ended up just leaving me there. I ended up staying I'm still, at this point in time, I think I'm still like 15 or 16 years old, maybe 16. She left me, and I ended up staying with my friend Aaron and his parents. They were an awesome family. They were from New Mexico originally, and I lived with them for a little while. And it basically got to the point where, like, I had a lot of stuff going on that I didn't understand, and I was probably kind of hard. I was probably a lot to deal with, basically, at that time. And so I couldn't stay with them anymore. I stayed with them for probably 6 months, maybe, before they were like, we love you and everything, but you got to go. You know what I mean? Like, it's too much. Like, your mom's not giving us any money to take care of you. Like, we don't have extra money to take care of you. Like, and so what happened was I had ended up going to live with this dude, Joe, the same guy that was smoking crack and fucking drinking beer in my room every night and screaming at the top of his lungs. My mom wasn't even around. I ended up going to live in an apartment that was still in my mom's name with this dude, Joe. And I slept in the living room on a mattress, when I couldn't be at my friend's house anymore, I would have to sleep there on a mattress or whatever. And shit got real crazy for me over there because I hated that guy, and I don't know why. That's the only place I had to go at the time, and I was there, and I didn't want to be there at all. And my mom had already ran off to New York, and she was living with some new guy who was going to be her husband. She was going to get married again, and My grandmother, who passed away, years ago, she's my mom's mom, and she was a good lady. She was a very, very good lady. She was a tough lady, and she basically said, you're coming to live with me now, right? So I'm roughly turning 17 at this point. I'm almost 17. I go to live with my grandma in a town called Montauk, which is at the tip of Long Island. It's actually not far from you in the water. So we go and live out there. My grandma worked on fishing boats, and they used to call her, I called her Grandma Sea Witch. She was Grandma Sea Witch. That's what I always called her until the day she died. She was my Grandma Sea Witch. And she basically brought me out there. And, at that point, I had started, I think I skipped a couple of things in a little bit in my story here, with drugs, because there was times when I was living with my mom in these apartment complexes, and I would like be skipping school, in middle school, and go with these kids. And I'm gonna go back a little bit. I'm gonna back it up a little bit. I would be skipping school with these older kids, and they were like, "Yo, smoke this weed, right? Smoke this weed." Like I remember kids forcing me to smoke PCP when I was like fucking 13 or 14 years old. I didn't even know what it was. You know what I mean? And these older kids in this one apartment complex were really like, they were really bad kids. Now that I think back on it, they were just like really bad people, and they probably didn't make it too far in life in general. But they used to do shit like they'd take me out in the desert. They would take me out of the desert because, the apartment complex would border just like basically barren desert. And like for instance, they'd take me out in the desert, and like they would just make me fight with they'd pick another kid that was like my age, and they would make me fight him. Like they would basically say like, either you guys fight or we're gonna beat the shit out of you right here and right now. Like after they made me smoke like PCP or weed or whatever. And they would give us weapons and shit. And they would make us,
like kidnapped you.
well, basically, yeah, they would take us out in the desert, and they would make us fight like, and I never wanted to fight anybody. I didn't want to have anything to do with that shit. They would give us weapons, and they would just fucking force us to fight each other. And I remember my grandma Sea Witch one day, she came out to Arizona to visit, right? And this is one particular time. They had us out in the desert. I was high on something or whatever. And they had us giving me hose clamps. You know what you clamp down a hose with a screwdriver? It's a metal hose clamp. Anyways, they put those on my fist and fighting this kid, and like neither one of us wanted to do it. And I didn't want to get my ass beat, and he didn't want to get his ass beat. So I ended up, fighting this kid and chasing him out in the desert. But my grandma knew something was up, and she went looking for me, right? And so she came out into the desert and found me, right? Right outside the apartment complex, and ended up dragging me back. She yelled at all those fucking bad kids. And she drugged me back home and basically gave me a talk like, that I needed to, if I didn't want to do that, I had to stand up for myself. And, I didn't have to do that shit. I could always run away or something like that, but it wasn't always that easy. You know what I mean? Yeah. So these kids were really bad. They would do all types of shit, man. Put guns in my mouth and all types of crazy shit. Just really, really fucking bad stuff. And so now I'll fast forward back, right? So now my grandma takes me back to New York. I'm living in New York with her. I'm about to turn 17. I'm starting at a new school. I'm still overweight. I'm 325 pounds. I go to ride the bus, and all the kids think that I'm like they think I'm some old man on the bus. I had a beard. I was fucking 325 pounds. So at first I had a hard time like blending in with people at school, And I was smoking a lot of weed because my grandma had a stash of weed that was probably 30 years old. This bag of weed was probably 30 years old, bro. And I found it somehow, and I was smoking that because I didn't know anybody else to get anything from, and I was just smoking weed. And I eventually met friends, like at my bus stop, and people, came around to being my friend or whatever. And at that point, something clicked in me, and I was like, I don't want to be this outsider anymore. I want to be like part of the cool kids, so to speak, or I want to be just like, I want to be popular. I want to be just like everybody else. So I started like riding my bike everywhere I could, and I lost like 120 pounds or something like that, like in one summer, riding my bike. And people started to treat me different then. You know what I mean? People started to treat me different. I was getting attention from girls and all that stuff. And I'm in high school now, and in the small town of Long Island where I was from, it's like the Hamptons, right? So you have a huge influx of people in the summertime. People come out there to party and vacation and everything. And then in the wintertime, there's fucking nothing going on. And a lot of kids do drugs out there, coke, pills, drinking, all that kind of shit. And so my mom was heavy into prescription pain medicine, like so heavy into it that she would take trips to Jersey. She would take trips out of state. This is when like these pill mills were like a thing. You know what I mean? This is at the height of like this epidemic, right? So she was double dipping. She was going to all these dirty doctors, and she would have like, 3,000 to 5,000 Oxycontins or fucking 1,000 Xanax bars and all this shit. So I could just go to her and get any of these drugs. And I did it all the time. I used to get all the drugs from her. I'd get, so many pills and basically just kill whatever pain that I had going on at the time with those drugs, like I remember one time picking up all these drugs, all these pills from her, like these big green Xanax bars, 3 milligram Xanax bars. I had a handful of those. I had a bunch of Oxy. I had a bunch of methadone. I had a bunch of Soma, these muscle relaxers, right? And I crushed all of them up into one bag, and I was sniffing that shit. I was sniffing a huge bag of just mixed up powder and drinking on top of it. This is in high school. This is one winter in high school, and just that was kind of like every day or every every week or whenever I could get it, whenever I could have it, and I would give the shit out to people left and right because people want to be friends when you have drugs. And I was real popular though. I was real popular. I was popular with the girls at that point. I was popular with guys, and I was just killing a lot of. I was wasting a lot of time in my life. There was a lot of things that I could have been doing, and as time went on, like my friends started to go off to college, and go the same people that I would be doing drugs with. They had actual families. They would get their shit together. They'd go off to college. They would go off to wherever. And I was still fucking there, still doing drugs, getting fucked up, going to parties every fucking night, whenever possible, having jobs on and off, but not really like no real like stable jobs, stable work, you know, because my grandma was pissed about that because she's like, you know, if you're gonna fuck around, you're not gonna go to college. You know, you got to work. So I'd get a job for a little while, and then I'd be eventually like, you know, I wouldn't show up because I went and got fucked up at a party or you know, whatever it was, doing fucked up stuff all the time, and you know, that lasted for a while, and meanwhile, I'm out on the east end of Long Island, and my younger brother is growing up a little bit further up the island with his dad and his family, and I'm like staying away because I'm young. I'm doing my own thing. I can't be bothered with any of that shit. I just wanted to be out all the time, right? And so I missed a lot of my brother's life, and then at some point I blinked my eyes, and my brother was basically 13 years old, and at this point, I had gotten a job working on a commercial fishing boat. My friend Donald, who passed away he had an accident on a fishing boat when he was 25, but when he was 18, he got me a job working on a fishing boat. And so I went out fishing, and I think I made $5,000 my first week fishing, and I was like, holy shit, I got money, right? So I bought a car, bought like, you know, obviously drugs and all type of shit. And I started to like see my brother. My brother started to want to see me, wanted to like be around me, you know. And you know, I would have this kind of on and off relationship with him because he lived up the island. He would still see my mom, and I didn't want to have any part of my mom's life at all. And you know, he was a kid. He didn't really understand a lot of the shit that went on, like when I was a kid. So he didn't quite understand like my standpoint on the whole thing. But you know, he got into drugs. He got into drugs. So fast forward a little bit. My brother died when he was 15 from a fentanyl overdose, and he had gotten the fentanyl from my mom, right? And so what had happened was he was living with his dad. They didn't want him to see my mom because he just wanted to be over at my mom's house all the time because he was getting drugs over there. And you know, I'm not 100% sure of this, but I'm almost positive that these were fentanyl patches, right? And my mom was cutting them open because my brother told me this shit when he was alive. My mom was cutting these patches open after they were used and like scraping the shit out of the inside and like cooking it up or shooting it or something, right? And what eventually happened was like his dad tried to go get him from the apartment that my mom was at with him. And my brother was like, fuck you, I'm not going. Because he was addicted, heavy, you know what I mean? And his dad actually got arrested for being there and put into jail, right? For just overnight. And my brother knew what he was doing wasn't right because he had plans to go to, he had basically an appointment to go to rehab the day after he actually died, right? So he was going to rehab, right? And that night he had taken these pieces of a pain patch, a fentanyl patch, out of the garbage can, and he put them in his mouth and chewed them up. And so he was sitting on the patio of the apartment, smoking a cigarette, chewing on this fentanyl patch, and he basically passed out and died right there on the patio. My mom came out in the morning, and he had been dead all night. Basically, he had the cigarette still hanging out of his mouth, just ashes. And so when that happened, Like I remember living at somebody's house. I was still fucking doing drugs too. I was living at this house with like 10 people in East Hampton, New York. And I remember being in the shower. I was in the shower. And sometimes, like periodically throughout my life, I would have these visions. I would have visions of, or thoughts of like myself dying. Like, what if I die and I leave my brother alone? You know what I mean? Like these things that went on in my head. And was having this kind of vision in the shower, and I got a phone call from my brother's grandma, right? And she said, you know, Gabriel's dead. He's dead. And I was like, nah, he's gonna be fine, because a year earlier he was at a party. When he was 14, he was at a party at somebody's house, and he had gotten into their parents' medicine cabinet, and he drank a whole bottle of you know, hydrocodone cough syrup, like lean or whatever, you know what I mean? He drank a whole bottle of it, and he overdosed. He got to the hospital. They pumped his stomach, and that's when I first found out that he even did drugs. I was like, holy shit, dude! Like, what the fuck, you know? And so, anyways, when I heard this news this time, I'm like, nah, he's gonna be fine. And they were like, nah, he's dead. He's been dead all night. He's dead, you know? And so I went into shock completely. I was in complete shock. I didn't go to the hospital to see him because, you know, I was still hiding from that. I was not ready for that. I was on drugs myself. I didn't go to the hospital. And I think I just started getting real fucked up. You know, I was like, I drank a lot that day. I drank a lot the next day. And I drank a lot for his funeral. And I wasn't even going to go to the funeral, as fucked up as that sounds. I wasn't even going to go to the funeral. And, you know, whatever, I mustered up the courage, and I went to the funeral. And there was a lot of young kids there. My brother was 15, so he had a lot of young kids from his school were there to see him. And I remember walking into the funeral home, and it was an open casket, and walking up to his casket and just being, you know, I was a wreck. I was such a wreck, because looking into his casket, he was dressed like me. He was wearing a hat like me, you know? And I remember just thinking to myself, like, he idolized me, and I wasn't what I should have been, right? And I remember the night before, basically 3 nights before he died, he called me, and he was like, yo, bro, like, I know that you're mad at me about like this whole like doing drugs thing, and I really like, maybe we could go do something together. Like, maybe we can go to like a car show or something. And like, coming from where I come from, like where my experiences are, like I gave him like super tough love, because I didn't know like at that point in my life, I didn't know anything else. And I was like, fuck you, like you need to get clean. Like, I'm not doing shit with you. And, you know, until you fucking figure your shit out, like, I don't want to fucking talk to you, basically. And those are the last things that I said to my brother, you know, before he died. So I had a lot of that weighing heavy on my head at the time. And so at some point after his funeral, watching him go into the ground, my mom showed up to his burial fucked up, like,
Oh my.
so fucked up. Like, people were like carrying her, you know what I'm saying? And it was like this, like, I remember seeing her at the burial, and I was like, I need to stop fucking doing drugs and like straighten out, you know, because this is like a wake up call. Basically, this is the wake up call I get. My brother just died. Like, where the fuck do I go from here? You know what I mean? And I like got sober for like a couple months, dude. Like, I got sober for like 3 months. I was like, you know, I was feeling good about myself, but I feel like I was kind of just doing it because my brother died, and I felt like I had to do it, but I don't think I was ready to be. So I wasn't there like internally yet. You know what I mean? So I slipped back into it pretty hard. Started doing pills again, drinking all the time, sniffing coke, fucking basically like whatever I could do. You know what I mean? Like, all the time. And you know, I was still on my own, you know, because I didn't live with my grandma anymore at that point in time. I was on my own. I didn't have a mom to talk to. I kind of like rekindled the relationship with my dad a little bit, my biological dad, because I didn't mention that when my mom took us to Arizona, she didn't tell my dad where we were going. So she just took me out to Arizona, and my dad fucking basically spent some time trying to find out where I was. And he went into a depression himself, and that only furthered his alcohol and drug use. You know what I mean? So he kind of just spiraled down into this fucking deep depression. So I rekindled the relationship with him a little bit, and it was not a healthy relationship at all. And so he was more of like a friend that I would drink with, and that just didn't really work out too good. We were on and off. Like, we would get mad at each other. I wouldn't talk to him for like a year or two at a time, and so I'm on my own and just trying to figure all this shit out for myself. You know what I mean? And I was with a girl. I was with a girl who I was eventually got engaged to. I was with her for like 9 years, you know, and like I thought that was like what I needed to do. I needed to be with her and get a house, and like, meanwhile, I'm still, you know, I didn't have any family. I didn't have shit at the time. You know, my brother's family was the closest family that I had, but I pushed them away. Like, anybody that was really good to me, I pushed them away. I didn't want any help. I didn't need any help from anybody in my mind, you know? And, you know, I just continued to do drugs for a long time. And so eventually, I'm skipping around a lot, but eventually I broke up with her, and this is less than 10 years ago. This is probably like 6 years ago. I break up with that girl because it's just not going anywhere. I ended up like living in my car at my friend's like mechanic shop. I was living in my car there, and I ended up like starting a business where I would clean out mansions. I would clean out like really wealthy people's houses in the Hamptons, right? And so my business did really well. I was on the front page of the local paper. I had a lot of traction. I had a lot of customers. I did a lot of work for real estate companies that were cleaning out these mansions. They would basically, you know, pay me to come in, clean out all the stuff, and then I would get to keep all the stuff. So what I did was I had like a big warehouse where I would do like a year-round yard sale type thing. Like, I would go clean out these houses. I'd clean out almost one house every single day. I'd bring all this stuff back, and I would sell it all. And you know, that kept me from doing. I wasn't really doing hard drugs at that time. Like I wasn't taking pills, but I was smoking fucking a lot of weed. I was smoking like a half ounce of weed a day, at least, every single day, all day long. I would smoke blunts all day while I was working. So I was functioning. I was high function, but I was smoking a lot of weed, driving a tow truck, doing these cleanouts at these houses. And I thought I was fine. I thought I was good. And I was drinking too. I would drink Four Locos. I would drink Four Locos at night to go to sleep because I didn't want to be in my own head. Obviously, that's why you do drugs, right? You know, you try to escape from your own mind. And so that went on for a while. And I had stayed out of Montauk for probably a couple of years because even though I was still fucking doing drugs and drinking and shit, I was at least working, you know? And my friends out there they come from like rich families, and I come from like nothing. Like we were in Section 8 housing, public housing, like that's how I grew up. And but then when I moved to the Hamptons, I was surrounded by a lot of wealthy people, and a lot of my friends their parents had money. That didn't mean they didn't have problems, but they had money, and they didn't really have to work, you know. So by just me staying out there, but by me like staying away from Montauk, I was able to at least keep myself working, you know, and teach myself like work ethic, right? To an extent. And so after I had broken up with that girl, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was talking to a lot of girls online, like that I knew, like on Facebook, and like, you know, just meeting up and going on dates and like, you know, whatever, going to the bar. And one day I was like, fuck it, I don't feel good about myself. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I was living in my friend's basement, right? His dad's basement. And I was like, I'm going to Montauk. Fuck it. I'm going to Montauk. I'm going to go to Montauk and I'm going to drink. So I drove out to Montauk. My friend owns a restaurant and a bar. Immediately, I was welcomed with open arms, right? Here's a drink. Drink your drink, right? Here's as much drinks as you want for free. Drink all the drinks you want on me. You don't have to pay for food. You don't have to pay for drinks. Just drink. Here's cocaine. Do all this cocaine. So my wife now, she was working at my friend's restaurant, doing tables, you know, being a server. And I saw her and I was like, who is that? And he was like, oh, you know, this is so and so. She just broke up with somebody in a long, you know, relationship. Like you two might have something in common, right? I'm like, okay. So you know, I'm hitting on her. I'm chatting with her, you know, and we ended up spending that whole night together. We drank, we did drugs, we did coke, we partied, and we spent the night together. And we were both, you know, she wasn't in. She would drink and do blow and stuff like that. But she worked really hard, and I was like, man, this chick is really, really cool. I really, really, really liked her a lot. And right off the bat, though, we would fight a lot. We would fight so much. Like even those first couple days, like I would say something and she didn't like it, and back then I was really an angry person. I was angry because I felt like I had a lot to be angry about at that time. So I would get kind of crazy and get angry and whatever. But after 3 months with her, we found out that she was pregnant. She was pregnant. And I'm like, holy shit, you're pregnant, you know? And so right when I found out she was pregnant, I knew that I wasn't going anywhere. I knew I that I was going to have a son, and I knew I was going to have a child, and I knew that I wasn't going to let that child grow up without a dad like I did. You know what I mean? And I knew right at that moment, right at that very moment. So she stopped drinking. She stopped doing drugs immediately. Like she knew she was pregnant. She was done. Boom. That's it. My wife is very health oriented. She's a massage therapist. She's been a massage therapist. So like partying for her was kind of like a side gig, but for me, it was like a full-time gig. You know what I mean? So she quit immediately. And I continued. I continued to drink. I continued to smoke weed. I continued to do coke at the bars with my friends. And I remember, when she took me to meet her family, they loved me right off the bat. They thought I was really cool. They liked me. They treated me really well. And she had a brother. Her brother was the same age as me, right? At the time we met, I was 31, and her brother was 31. And he had a heroin problem, right? So her mom, when we first met, her mom was dealing with cancer. She had a double mastectomy. And they were dealing with a lot of family issues that were revolving around her brother, right? Pretty much all the drama revolved around her brother, stealing, doing drugs. He lived at home, and it was like typical addict behavior. When I say typical addict behavior, I don't like mean that offensively, but it was like, living at home, no job, stealing money for drugs, borrowing money for drugs, basically desperate for heroin, and so time goes on. My first son, Maximus, is born, and seeing him come into the world completely it was the best thing that ever happened to me, period, at that time. It was a beautiful thing. I was there for the whole thing. I didn't miss one birthing class. I didn't miss shit. I was there the whole time. And but that still wasn't enough for me to get sober. And I had gotten back into we needed money, so I had gotten back into fishing, right? I got back into fishing at that point. I was going out on a commercial scallop boat at that point in time. And somebody that I knew from the past, had owed me money from the past. And I saw him, and he came to me. He's like, "Yo, bro, I got something for you. I don't have money for you, but I got coke for you." So he gave me 7 grams of coke or something like that. And so I did it all. I didn't tell anybody that I had it. I did it all by myself, quietly, functioning still, doing, just going out my day, just doing coke. And I was still fishing, but I had fallen into this job. I wasn't doing cleanouts anymore, obviously, but I had fallen into this job. There was this property in Montauk that was over 100 years old. It was crazy. It was that's like a whole story in itself. This property was wild. It was an old ski resort, from a water skiing resort from like the 40s. There was all these cottages. It was very overgrown. And I was driving to dinner one night with Andrea and Max. He was a baby. And I saw that property. I've never seen it before. I lived in this tiny little town my whole life, and I had never seen this property. But all of a sudden, this property became visible to me. And I said, "Do you mind if I turn around and look at that?" I turned around and looked at it, and then we went home. The very next day, my aunt called me. My aunt was like, "I have somebody that's interested in having this property cleaned up, and I know you've done property cleanups in the past." And I was like, it's not 41 East Lake Drive, is it? And she was like, yes, it is. That's odd. I'm like, yeah, well, like I just was drawn to that property yesterday. And so I ended up getting a job doing a clean out for this property, and the people that I was working for are like one of the wealthiest people in the world. They own the David Warner Gallery in New York City. They have a $500 million a year business. And so they hired me to do this cleanup. They gave me a check for $25,000 right off the bat. And so I had money, and I had money to give Andrea. I had money for the kids. I had money for everything. And I was doing this job, and I ran out of that Coke, and I had money, so I got more. And this job turned into like a kind of on a time crunch. I started really having to do this job, as I tend to do all the jobs myself. I tend to do everything myself. So I'm just doing Coke. I'm doing this work. I'm drinking. And I get the job done in time. And they said, hey, would you consider being our property manager for this property? We'll fix up one of these cabins for you and your family to live in. And you can just live here and basically be on call to do whatever kind of work we need and take care of all this stuff. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I end up moving in there. And my wife was really mad at me for drinking. I was drinking so much, because I would wake up in the morning and have to do work. And I would wake up in the morning, I would drive to 7-Eleven, I would buy fucking 2 or 3 tall boy beers or 4 Locos or something. I would drink them at 8 in the morning. I would go to work, and I didn't think that anything was wrong because I had money, I had machines, I had equipment, I had stuff, and basically I just stayed doing that for close to a year. I want to say like 8 months. And then like I was still staying there, but the money had kind of slowed down because they had to take a break from building because they were in different parts of the world doing different things, and like my money wasn't coming in as much as it was. I didn't have to pay rent, but I still had to take care of my family and feed everybody and car payments, stuff like that. So I ended up going fishing again, right? So I get on a fishing boat again, and it was a really, really good fishing boat, but we would go out, I would be out basically fishing 3 weeks out of the month, but I would make, 10, 11, 12, $13,000 a month. And I wasn't doing drugs at sea, which was good because you can't do drugs at sea. They don't fucking pay you if they catch you doing drugs or drinking at sea. But I would come home from sea and I would drink and drink and drink and do drugs. And my wife was very, very unhappy with me at that point. Also still dealing with the drama from her brother. And one day I go out on a fishing trip. I'm gone for a week. I had no, you don't have cell phone reception. There's no contact with your family when you're out there. And I end up coming back and coming into cell phone service. And one of the guys in the boat's like, yo, bro, I'm so sorry to hear the news. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? He was like, your wife's brother killed himself, or your wife's brother died. Your wife's brother died. I'm like, oh, shit. He must have died from an overdose, right? And so I get into cell service, and she actually calls my phone and told me that her brother hung himself in their family's home with mom and dad there. Her dad actually found him hanging in his room, and so that was a hard time. That was a super hard time because I had to be there for her, the best that I could. And going through what I went through with my brother, I felt like it it was almost God's plan for me to be there for her in a way. So that just brought on a whole new slew of issues and problems for us, you know. But as hard as it was, you know, we stuck through it together, and still drinking, still doing coke, and it came to a point where I was drinking and doing drugs, and one night I was out of the bar, and I was like super dude. We had gotten in a fight, and I had gotten out of the car on the side of the road, and I walked like miles in anger. I was angry, you know, and because I was still living with a lot of anger at that point. Anger was kind of like running my life, you know what I mean? I almost felt like entitled in a way, that I was entitled to be angry. And I ended up going out, getting super drunk, hitting on some girls, and you know, nothing happened, but these girls told my wife that I was hitting on them and that I was fucked up and blah blah blah. And so my wife was like, "Fuck you! I'm taking Max and I'm going to my parents' house and I'm fucking leaving you." And that was immediately my heart hit the ground, because Maximus was my life, and Andrea was my life too at the time. So basically, you know, I was like, all right, I'm gonna stop drinking. I'm gonna do whatever you want me to do. I'm gonna go to a program. So that day, I drove myself to like a rehab facility in Riverhead, New York. I drove myself to a rehab facility, and I went in for an evaluation. I took myself in for an evaluation. They urged me to go into detox, and I was like, nah, you know, I think I just want to do an outpatient thing. I don't know if I don't think I want to go to detox, right? Typical kind of shit, right? So the guy's like, you know, he's like, withdrawal from alcohol could be like some of the most dangerous withdrawals. You know, people die from that. And I'm like, well, I don't think I'm withdrawing. And he told me to hold my hand up. And I hold my head up in front of my face, and I'm like, blah. And even, you know, despite his urges for me to go to a detox, I didn't go. I went home. And I said, you know what? I said, I'm committed to this, right? I'm committed to this, but I don't want to go to a facility. So what I did was I found the local AA meeting, right? I went into an AA meeting. I went into one, and I walked in the door, and everybody was really nice to me. And I shared my first time. I shared a little bit about myself and what I was doing. I got the book. I got all that stuff. I was still fishing, so I went on another fishing trip at sea. When I came back home, I didn't drink. I went to another AA meeting, and I don't want anybody to like take any kind of offense to what I'm about to say, because everybody's different, especially when it comes to recovery. And so when I went to that second AA meeting, I sat down in the AA meeting and I looked around myself, and I listened to everybody share. And there were people in there that were like, oh, you know, I'm so-and-so. I've been coming to AA for 35 years. Or I've been coming to AA for 15 years. And I thought to myself, I'm like, I don't want to rely on this. I don't want to rely on AA to be sober and to be the person that I should be. You know what I'm saying? So from that day, I quit drinking. I have not drank in a little over 3 years now.
3 years.
And at that point in time, I was still using weed as a crutch, which I think for some people it can be, I think it's good and bad. You know, I think for some people that are kicking really heavy drugs, weed can kind of be like a crutch and kind of help you in a way. I was still abusing weed. I wasn't just smoking a little at night. I was smoking a lot of weed all the time. And my wife, so I went out on another fishing trip. And when I went out on this last fishing trip, wasn't my last, but when I went on this fishing trip right after my second AA meeting, you know, we would go out in hurricane weather. We would go out in 25-foot waves, sub negative 0 degree weather, ice, snow, and we would go and we would fish in that shit. It's like what you see on TV. I always tell people it's like, you know, deadliest catch, because people can relate to that type of, they've seen that type of thing, right? So we got into a situation where the boat, we took a huge wave in the back, the whole deck filled up with water, the motor shut off, and the boat started to go into what they call like a slide. That's when like the deck takes on a lot of water and the boat kind of tilts into the wave, and then you start to go down and it sucks you down. And I remember, I get a little emotional about that. I remember everything around me just went blank, and I held on to this pipe, and I could feel my body. I could feel gravity taking my body as the boat started to come up in the air. And I said, I talked to God for one of the first times in my whole life. I said, God, not now. I am not ready. I am not ready. I'm not ready right now. And so the next thing you know, I hear the boat start, engine starts up. The captain came running out, threw me to the side because I'm just kind of like stuck there in fear, holding on to this pipe. He ran out, he pulled up the scuppers, which are basically little doors that you open to let water off the deck. The boat floated up out of the water. Everybody looked at each other. We were all white as a ghost. Everybody was scared shitless. Nobody talked, and we just drove in, you know, and it was a day and a half ride in land because we're out in the middle of the ocean. And so when we drove in, I just thought to myself, I contemplated my life the whole time. And when I got home, I told my wife about it, and she was in tears, and it was emotional. And she was like, "We got to do something different. We have to leave. We have to either leave New York. We have to do something different." And so she was a massage therapist at a salt cave in Montauk called Montauk Salt Cave. She was like, "We should do something like this. Like, we should start a business like this." And I was like, "Fuck, I'll do anything at this point in time. I'll do anything, you know?" And so essentially I fished for another couple months to get money together. And we moved down to North Carolina and we started our own salt cave called Native Salt Cave. And it's been a successful business. And I'm currently going to be opening another salt cave in the future. I'm in the works right now. I'm opening another one in the town where we live. So, and I haven't drank. I quit smoking pot. I quit smoking weed probably, I want to say 7 months ago. I quit smoking weed. So now I'm super duper sober and I feel good. I feel really, really good about myself because, and the reason I quit smoking weed wasn't like a problem. It wasn't like My wife wasn't going to leave me because I was smoking weed. I didn't want my kids to see me be reliant on any substance at all. Because I grew up watching all these things with my eyes as a little kid. And as much as I really didn't, I never really glorified those types of things, but I learned all these habits as a kid, and I copied those things as a young adult and as an adult. And I just didn't want my kids to grow up seeing me be reliant on any substance at all. So one day I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna quit smoking weed. And I just quit smoking weed, and I haven't smoked weed since, and I don't feel the need to smoke weed at all. And I have 2 beautiful kids now. I have a 2-year-old son named Abel, and I have a 4-year-old son named Maximus. And never in my life, I own a 10-acre ranch. I own a 10-acre farm in my name. I got a business in my name. I never thought in my whole life that I wouldn't, even a couple years ago, like even, 3.5 years ago, I never ever saw myself in this position. But quitting drinking was the best thing that I had ever done for my own family, let alone myself, because as much as when you're doing drugs and when you're drinking and you don't think it's a problem, it's a huge fucking problem. You know what I'm saying? And getting sober from those things changed my life for the best. And I constantly share with people. Like, I share my story with people on the regular. If anybody asks me, I'll tell anybody my story, because if hearing my story can change your outlook on, addiction or the stigma of addiction or what happens after addiction, if it helps one person, I feel like my struggle was worth it. You know what I mean? It was worth it for me to go through what I went through to be the person that I am now, if that makes any sense to you. So, there's a bunch of shit that I left out and that I probably skipped over and, bounced around. But needless to say, like, my life was rough, and I've been through a lot. I'm 35 years old. I've been through a lot more than some people that are twice my age. And I almost feel blessed for these things, because it's given me a good head on my shoulders, and it's given me perspective of where you can end up. You can die, you can lose your family, you can lose everything. You could lose your mind. You could lose everything. And it's actually been a huge blessing for me, because from this point on in my life, I only want to do good things, And like Scab talked about his YouTube channel really helping him. And the YouTube channel didn't necessarily play a role in my sobriety, but what the YouTube channel did was enable me to be positive. It enabled me to learn to accept other people's compliments and positivity for myself. And it's given me a venue to basically just, I don't want to say that I'm brightening someone's day, but it gives me an opportunity to be positive for somebody that maybe isn't feeling so good that day or so good that year. You know what I mean? And I know on my channel I don't talk a whole lot about, addiction or anything like that. And that's mainly because I just don't know. like how many people want to hear those types of things. That's why I say in the comments, I say, or I say at the end of the video, I'm like, what do you want to hear from Salty Redcorn? What do you want Salty Redcorn to talk about? Nobody said anything like that, so I just keep it to myself. But I'm willing and ready to talk to anybody about anything. You know, I have my advice. I've been through enough that I can offer, you know, my perspective on things, and you know that feels good. So the YouTube channel, plus it just feels really good for me to have positive reinforcement, right? Because like I still like I don't have any family. Like I have my own family, but I don't have any like family like a dad or a mom like encouraging me or anything like that. So I find a lot of family. Thanks, Shield Arms, brother. I love you, man. So I find my family in all of you guys in this community, and I mean that. Like I mean that when I say that I love you, brother, or I love you, like I really do love you. I love you more than you probably could understand, and that's why I try and give a lot of gifts, and I try to just show my love the best way I can. And all you guys are welcome into my life, and I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for everybody.
I mean, the one thing that I've noticed is that I see so many, and I mean, like I've literally been counting them in my head, like so many eerie similarities between your story and yours.
That's why I'm getting emotional.
I've literally been counting them this entire time. Like it is scary how so many of us in the community have had almost exact experiences, right down to your mom thinking that there's things in the walls.
Yeah.
Your mom thinking there's vampires in the kitchen, standing there with a crucifix and a sack of garlic.
And that's the thing. I think we all can connect on a lot of these. We all can connect on so much of this. And I think, you know, I don't go to church every day, but I believe in God, and I believe in God 100%. I believe in like destiny, you want to call that. Like I believe that maybe we're all destined to be in each other's lives, to be there for each other, and to be there for other people together as a group. You know what I mean? So I feel that.
And I have a baby brother. I have a brother. I got really emotional about your brother. I didn't expect that at all.
Right.
And I couldn't even imagine ever losing him.
Right. It was one of the hardest things that I dealt with at the time, and I didn't even feel feelings then because I was on so many drugs, you know, and it still hurt. And to this day, it still hurts, you know, because I didn't really have much closure on the whole thing, and I still have it, you know, but there's parts that I left out. I lost a lot of friends. I lost some friends to overdoses. I lost some friends to some serious work-related accidents. It's not that I've become callous to death, but I've learned to cope with it my way. You know what I mean? And
you became desensitized.
Exactly. Yeah.
In fact, it's not normal. There's nothing normal about that.
No, there's not. There's not at all.
Yeah, I lost my brother
when we first met.
So.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
He overdosed on fentanyl.
And elephant tranquilizer.
Right.
He thought it was heroin, and they found him in near where I used to live with my parents.
I'm sorry, brother. I hate to say this, but I feel you. I feel for you. I get it.
Thanks.
And I can't see the comments right now, but anybody who's in the comments that ever wants to talk to me, reach out to me. Hit me up. I'm here. I'm willing to talk. Always.
Yeah, we got
Anytime.
comment.
I've seen a few questions. Like,
Yeah.
I think Legion asked about like, is your heart okay? Just and understandably, just because a lot of the mixtures of those different substances, they can do a number not just on your heart.
Well, so my heart, as far as I know, my heart is okay, but I did have some very serious medical issues related to my drug use, and I'll tell you a little bit about that now. Right before we moved to North Carolina, we had taken a 1 week vacation down here, and when I came down here, my stomach hurt so bad when I woke up one morning, like the worst pain, physical pain that I've ever felt in my whole life. And so my wife brought me to a local hospital, and they said, we're going to do some tests, right? They gave me, obviously they gave me fentanyl right off the bat because I was in pain, and that's what they give you at the hospital. And so they gave me fentanyl, and they did some CAT scans on me and said that I had a condition called diverticulitis, right? And this is basically when your intestines have these little air bubbles on them, and it's almost like your intestines are a piece of bubble, like packing, like bubble wrap, right? These little pockets, and little like pieces of food and poop and stuff get stuck in there, and they cause inflammation, and they cause level 10 pain. And so I left the hospital. They gave me pain medication. I didn't have a problem with the pain medication. I took it as they told me. They only gave me a couple. I took it as they told me, and when it was done, it was done. I didn't do any more, thank God. But I came back to New York, and I still had some time here before I was able to make the move. And so I went out on a fishing trip, and I had this pain, and they actually had to turn the boat around. They were going to call the Coast Guard, and they actually had to turn the boat around and bring me home. And I went straight home, and I didn't go to the hospital right away because I was like, you know what? Like, I went to the hospital before. All they did was give me pain medication and told me it was going to go away.
Yeah, so why would you want to go again?
Exactly. So I didn't. And what ended up happening is the next morning I had that pain again. So I drove myself to an urgent care, like just a regular walk-in urgent care. And doctor was like, bro, I really think that you should go to the hospital, but if you're not going to go to the hospital, you should go get a CAT scan. And here's a referral to a lab where they can do a CAT scan. So I drove myself to this lab. I took the CAT scan, and I was driving back home. It was like an hour and a half drive home. And on my way home, they called me, and they were like, listen, guy, you need to go to the hospital right now because you have an abscess on your intestine.
Jesus.
You have free air in your abdomen, which means basically you have a hole in your intestine, and it's leaking gas from your stomach into your abdomen. So I was like, what? Holy shit. So I drove myself to the hospital in Riverhead, New York. And this is where things get interesting. I walk into the hospital, and I'm like, hey, I'm here. I just left the laboratory. They said I have trapped free air, and I have an abscess on my intestine, and I'm really worried. I don't know what it is. The triage people, there was 2 male triage nurses, and they literally started laughing. They started laughing at me, and I'm like, "Fuck you laughing at?" Like, they just told me to come here, and they were like, "Oh, well, what kind of pain are you in?" I was like, "I'm in like level 10 right now. I'm sweating. I'm in pain." They're like, "Oh, well, what's your? We need to see your prescription history."
They thought you were drug seeking.
And so right then and there, I knew exactly what you just said. I was like, "Man, these guys think I'm here for drugs," because my mom does that. Did that, does that. She goes to the hospital fucking with some crazy shit and gets the drugs. So
So did his.
isn't that crazy, bro?
Hmm.
So right then and there, I said, okay. I said, I refuse pain medication. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I refuse pain medication.
Shut them up real quick.
I don't want pain medication. I refuse pain medication. They're like, holy shit, well, maybe there is something wrong with this guy. They take me in. I ended up staying there for a week. They gave me antibiotics. They fixed the cyst. They didn't have to do a surgery. The hole healed on itself from the antibiotics or whatever they're giving me. And so this went on now for another couple of years. And once I moved down to North Carolina, it happened to me like 2 or 3 more times. I ended up having to go to the hospital. I got treated like a junkie every single time. Even though at this point in my life, I wasn't on drugs and I wasn't looking for drugs. And that's not something I ever did anyways. I just get my drugs on the street from my mom. I never went to the doctor for drugs. But I understood where they were coming from because I saw my mom do this all the time, right? So, anyways, the very last time it happened, I was in the hospital for a week. They were about to send me home. And I was like, I can't go home now. I just can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore because the pain that I was feeling would throw me into a cold sweat. I couldn't eat any food. I lost like 65 pounds. I was 208 pounds. And if you see me in person at 208 pounds, I have like my jowls. I look like a sick person. I looked like really, really sick because I couldn't eat food. And
they said this was all because of the prior substance abuse?
well, basically they said that this disease is caused by stress and basically drugs and alcohol, like, and smoking and shit like that. So a combination of all those things. The doctor described to me one time, he said, dude, he said, you have 2 brains. He said, your head has a brain and your stomach has a brain. And when you're stressed out, you get a headache. He said, well, your stomach brain twists your intestines up like this and squeezes so hard that it pops these little bubbles into your intestine. Makes this diverticulitis happen. So eventually that time I said, I can't go home. I can't do this anymore. They're about to discharge me. They literally have the papers in hand. And a surgeon walks by. He looks at the thing real quick and he's like, holy shit. He's like, look at this thing. He points to the spot of my intestine. And they did a little bit more research and found out that my colon was basically what they described as like a hard tube of plastic. Like it was dead scar tissue at this point. And so
come back to the doctors for like the what time ever since we started this? Like Tina, Shield, Scab, it all comes back to these doctors who either don't want to listen to you or just hand the shit out like candy to shut you up.
They give you the drugs and then treat you like a junkie for maybe needing more or whatever. I don't have a lot of faith in the healthcare system at this point in time, which is another reason that I was so happy and I feel so grateful to own this wellness business. Where, we're not doctors, but we can offer, just people incentive, like insight into a healthier lifestyle, that doesn't require pain management. It doesn't require drugs. You know what I mean?
You
I
know,
think that. Yeah, go ahead.
I might refer my friend Mike to you
Go for it.
because he's going through a lot of pain too. So, Mike,
Definitely.
give
I will
us
offer. I'll offer any help any way I can. Any way. Any possible way.
And the doctor thing, I think, might come back up with Shield again because how doctors treated you as a little kid and him.
yeah,
You were essentially a guinea pig
I was.
because nobody knew what was going on.
Nope.
Nobody had answers.
Really? It's so sad. It's really so sad that the way that doctors, I think that there are truly some good doctors out there that really, really care. And I also think that there's a lot of doctors out there that are just in it for a paycheck, a big paycheck. You know what I'm saying? And I think that the way that they treat people on a person-to-person basis it can be pretty disgusting, especially in some major hospitals. So I don't know, but anyways, eventually they cut my colon out, and I was scared to death. I was scared to death. I was thinking to myself, I was lying in the hospital bed on fentanyl and Dilaudid, and just thinking to myself, like, what have I done to myself? You know what I mean? I was like, here I am now. I quit drinking. I quit doing drugs, and I may still not be around for my kids. So, they told me, they're like, yo, you're gonna need a colostomy bag and all this shit, and I'm like, oh my God, I like that was hard for me to swallow. That was a hard pill for me to swallow. And by the grace of God, I got yet another chance. And the surgery went extremely well. They removed my colon. I didn't even need to have a temporary colostomy bag. I woke up with a scar on my belly. And here I am, still kicking, healthy.
Even if you did get the bag, it's nothing to be ashamed of. I've dealt with them many a time.
No. And I know that now. And I kind of came to peace with myself at the time. But for me at the time, it was such a scary thing. And I'll give you a little backstory and I'll tell you why. The reason I was so scared of the colostomy bag was my grandma Seawitch that I love so much. She went into she was healthy, and she went into the hospital for a knee replacement. The same hospital that laughed at me when I went there for my stomach. She went to this hospital for a knee replacement. While she was there, they didn't hydrate her enough, and they didn't ask her if she was going to the bathroom, and she ended up having an impacted bowel, which means your intestines are so full of shit that nothing will move and it's stuck. And so her intestine burst. She had to have an emergency surgery. And she basically had her intestine exposed, right? She had a bandage on her stomach where her intestine was exposed and poop would come out of this hole.
They have to pull it out.
And it became, for the next 5 years after that, that issue killed her. She developed cancers from that.
Oh my God.
She developed all these different diseases that she didn't have from that particular surgery, emergency surgery that wasn't done correctly. And I was scared to death because I had saw that. And I saw my grandma basically die slowly from that type of thing. So when they said colostomy bag, I almost didn't know what to do. I went into this dark place in my head where I was like, is my life over now? Am I gonna have to play with my kids like this? Like, and like I said, like it is nothing to be ashamed of. And I know that now. But at the time, I was frightened. I was scared to death. I was ashamed of myself for being in that predicament in the first place. So, yeah.
You are one tough motherfucker.
I try.
Everybody so far. I mean,
Yeah, I agree. Everybody's got a story to tell. And listening to these recovery, like, so we have the little recovery thing in Discord, and that's cool. And I knew that everybody had issues, with different things in the past. And I know everybody has a story, but being able to watch this on your program, being able to watch Recovery Edge and watch people talk about it, as much as I'm sitting here listening to people's hard times, it brings a huge smile to my face because I'm like, you know what? Everybody's here still. We're all able to watch each other and talk about each other's bullshit here on this channel, right? So I think this channel is something very special, and I'm grateful for the two of you for putting this on and having a place for people like us to talk and to share our story. So
that's all I want. I want a place where people can come to and tell their story and not get judged. And
100%.
everything.
I love it. Absolutely love it. I love you guys for doing it.
So one more question.
Sure.
How did you get your nickname? Salty Redcorn.
I was going to say that, but now I guess we know.
All right. I'll tell you how I became Salty Redcorn. So, like about 2 years ago, I joined Metal Complex's Discord. I had always been into knives and guns and all that kind of stuff, but never into knives. I was always into knives, but never into like collecting knives. I wasn't so deep into knives that I was like crazy about blade steels and like all this stuff, right? So I started getting into Spyderco, and I'm like, I joined this Discord, and my name was Spider-Mo. Like I'll give you guys my real name, right? My real name is Morgan Roman. That's my real name, right? So my name was Spider-Mo, right? And one of the dudes in the channel was like, "What do you do? What do you do for a living?" I was like, "Well, I own a salt cave." And immediately all these memes, they started posting up all these memes. And one of the memes was, have you ever seen the show King of the Hill?
Love that show.
All right. So in that show, there's a character named John Redcorn. All right.
Yeah.
And John, he's the Native American, right? So John Redcorn in this show is the guy that he always, like, everybody's wife is constantly going to John Redcorn's migraine workshops, right? Because people are like, "Yo, what do you do at a salt cave?" I'm like, "Well, at a salt cave, we do massage, we do Reiki, we do reflexology, we have psychic mediumship demonstrations, tarot card readings. We have a shamanic healer that works here, a shaman." And so I tell them that, and they're like, "A shaman?" Like, so then they put up this meme of John Redcorn, and it was a clip of all the clips in the show of John Redcorn taking everybody's wife to this these migraine workshops, right? And
Tina commented this at some point. she's getting over there is on her bucket list. It's now on mine.
Definitely. I would love to have any of you guys down here at any point in time. I mean that. I'm here. And so just down the line, they started calling me John Redcorn, and they changed my little avatar to a picture of John Redcorn. So I was John Redcorn for a little while. And they were like, somebody was like, nah. Because I used to post a lot of pictures of my knives in my salt cave. And they were like, you're fucking salty Redcorn. And so I just ran with it. I just ran with it from there, and I've been salty Redcorn ever since. So that's my salty Redcorn story.
That's a good story.
Here, I'll take you guys for a little walk real quick.
That had been bugging me for a while. I just never knew how to ask him.
No, it's. I always wonder what he did for a living.
I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see so good, but I'm inside the salt cave right now.
Oh my God.
It's hard. It's dark in here. We keep it dark in here. It's hard to tell, but I'll turn the lights on like so you guys can see.
Oh my God.
Wow.
So there's 15 tons of Himalayan salt in this room. It's all from Pakistan. It's all mined 500 feet below the surface of the Himalayan mountain range. And I fill the room up with a pharmaceutical grade salt aerosol that people breathe in. And there's a lot of benefits to salt therapy, but a lot of it's respiratory. The salt aerosol makes its way into your respiratory system. It busts up any kind of congestion that you have. It opens your passageways. It'll bind with particulates that are in your respiratory system that aren't supposed to be there. And then when you drink water, you kind of flush all that stuff right out of your body. You flush all the toxins out of your body. And we just offer.
I'm booking flights. I mean,
Yeah, come on down. But just being part of this, you know, like before we started this, I was skeptical about any of this shit. I was skeptical about mediumship. I've had my mind blown by we have a wonderful medium that works here named Kim Griffin. She blew my mind. I mean, that's a whole different story. But coming from being skeptical about a lot of this stuff and then having my mind changed in real time by real people, that offers me a good perspective for our customers. And that's why, you know, that's part of the reason that our business has been really successful here. And it's been a really good thing for me, you know, to be here and do this, because, you know, this really helps me as a person, you know. And what's cool about it too is I sit behind the desk, right? So I greet everybody that comes in the door, and everybody that comes in the door has got their own story, you know. And I get to listen to everybody's story and then chop it up with them and share my story. And that enables me in like a million different instances and ways that I've been able to say that people come back in here and they're like, yo, you know, about what we talked about, you know, that really changed my life in a way, or that changed my way of thinking. Or, yeah, I sell salt lamps. I got salt lamps for sale. I see the comment.
I need one.
I love salt lamps.
Look at see all my salt lamps?
Oh
Wow.
my God.
Yeah, I got salt lamps for days. I got salt lamps, baby.
I wonder if they can help with cerebral palsy.
So salt therapy could help you in a way. Salt therapy, the salt lamp itself most likely will not help with that, but breathing in the aerosol in the cave will definitely help with inflammation, because it's naturally antiviral, antimicrobial, antibiotic, antifungal, but anti-inflammatory is one of the biggest things that I see as testimonies from people of being in that room, is that their inflammation goes down quite a bit just from spending time in the room. So
I said, fuck Florida. I'm going to,
Well, no, not fuck
I'm
Florida.
going to.
I'm on the way. I'm on the way to Florida, man.
Yeah,
I'm
like
on the way.
make it a thing.
Yeah, make it a thing. Stop down and hit me up.
Yeah, I've been looking for stuff because my arthritis is getting ridiculous.
And the cold
Yeah.
is always aggravated.
Yeah.
You
I
have
can understand.
relief in the summer.
Mhm.
I could totally get that. I could totally understand that. You know, a lot of my customers here find a lot of relief from like, CBD and stuff like that. I know right now there's a kind of a stigma around CBD, but not really anymore. You know, a lot of people are using it for pain relief, and there's a lot of really watered down, really bad CBD out there. But if you can find somebody that's making CBD extract that's full spectrum, that sometimes really helps with pain relief. I don't use it personally, but I know a fucking 1,000 people that come into my place that use CBD regularly for some serious like rheumatoid arthritis and stuff like that. So, you know,
Well, I don't want to keep you anymore because you got a
You
family.
got babies.
yeah, yeah. I got a long drive home. I live about 45 minutes from the cave, but I just really, 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 really wanted to do this. And my wife was really supportive of me doing this, and she was, proud of me for getting up here and sharing my story. So
Would you do it again?
I would love to do it again anytime on a Wednesday or a Thursday. I can make time to be down here and we could talk about all different kinds of stuff. You know, there's parts of my story that I didn't tell that were equally as disturbing. Right? But it's just a lot to talk about at one time. You know what I mean? And when you start telling your story, like you tend to like forget things and remember halfway through and you're like, holy shit, I gotta go back, and revisit that. So anytime. The CB cause tricardia. I don't know. I
That's a
don't know.
that's a
I
hard
don't.
thing, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but it honestly, there's CBD is very new as far as medical research goes. So I definitely don't recommend it to everybody, and I always recommend talking to your doctor first before you try any kind of CBD products. But
Yeah, I wouldn't just try that like on a whim.
yeah, I always recommend, especially if you have some kind of, if it's something really, really serious. Obviously, CBD is not going to, there really is no substitute for Western medicine, but I don't think you need to use Western medicine as your primary source. There's so many different things that you could do as a supplement to make your body healthier, right? It's one thing to rely on Western medicine, um, because it's just that you can become very reliant on medicine, and you can become very reliant on doctors. I saw in Scab's Recovery Edge that I saw a Jersey Knife guy say that he was still taking Suboxones after 10 years.
Yeah.
And shame on the doctor that hasn't weaned him off of it, right? It's one thing. I don't think total blame is for the doctor. I think a lot of it has to do with yourself, and when you're ready to do that, you take that step. But shame on the doctor for not getting him started on weaning him off that. There's no reason in the world that anybody needs to be reliant on a doctor, right? So that's just my take. But
I haven't seen him on in a couple days.
where's that ferret? Forky.
Wiki.
Hi, what's up? What a cute animal. Oh my goodness.
Okay, Misty.
So,
Yeah,
can anyone email you or call you
of
if
course.
they have any questions?
Of course. Of course. Anyone can email me. I'll give you my email right now. I'll say it out loud, and maybe somebody could type it out in the comments because I can't really comment right now. I don't think I can't.
I can.
All right. So my email is head high HEAD. I'm telling you. Hold on. I'm gonna write it. Oh no, I'll just tell you. It's head high inc. HEADHIGHINC at gmail.com.
Okay.
You can always email me. You guys can always DM me on Instagram. You guys can always DM me on Discord anytime.
Is
Yeah,
that right?
that's right. That's it. That's it. Exactly. And you know, if it comes down to it and we're talking, I will give you my phone number and we can text message or we can call and we can talk on the phone anytime. I'm here for all you guys. And what can I say, man? I'm really grateful to be part of this community. I just want to mention this one before I get going. My good friend Mike, who passed away this last year from he had a heart attack due to other health complications. He is the one that invited me into Scab's Discord. He said, "Yo, I think that you would really like this group of people," and he was fucking right. I love all you guys, and he died shortly after inviting me into the Discord. And I'm still in touch with his family. I reached out to his family. I've been in touch with his family. And I just really want to say thank you to him and thank you to Scab and thank you to all you guys for letting me be part of your community and letting me be part of your lives and watching me on YouTube and subscribing to me and all that because it all feels really, really good to feel all that love. So that's it.
Just like Shield Arms, your family.
I love Shield Arms. Shield Arms is my brother from another mother, man. I call him Santa. He's my Santa. We had that's an inside name that he's had from a different Discord, and I still call him Santa. I love him so much. He's a good friend, and I always got his back, 100%.
Awesome.
All right. So if anybody doesn't have any other questions, I'm out.
You out. I'm out.
Like Scab would say, I'm salty Redcorn. You're not. I'm gone, son.
Go. So, thank you to Salty for coming on. That's his email right there, as you can see. I know a lot of people go through a lot of pains, and I go through pains, and please email him. He's a real good dude. I love him like a brother. He is a brother. So we're gonna go to bed now. I love all of you. And like I always say, never give up, never surrender, and give loyalty and respect to everyone, especially your beautiful self. So, good night, everyone. I love all of you, and thank you for watching.